Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. My name is Nick and today we're going to be talking about Resident Evil 8 Village. For the purposes of this review, it's going to be spoiler free, so let's get right into it. So the game takes place roughly 2 years after the events of Resident Evil 7. Ethan and Mia both flee to Europe per the advice of Chris Redfield, and they end up having a daughter, Rose, who becomes kind of a central figure of the story that we're going to embark on. Events transpire early in the game. Ethan gets knocked out and wakes up on the outskirts of this mysterious European village that he has to make his way through to find his family and escape. That is like the ultimate Cliff's Notes version of the story without giving away any huge stuff, so just bear with me here. So starting out, when you first play this game, you're going to notice the detail in the environments and the environments themselves. This is a huge, expansive map. It's not like the police station. It's not like downtown Raccoon City. It's not like the Spencer Mansion. This is a huge, huge area. You see the big vistas in the distance. You see Castle Dimitrescu. You see over the entire village. You see a distant swamp section. And it feels more like a huge world to explore. It feels like if Resident Evil and Skyrim kind of mixed. Obviously it's not going to be as big as Skyrim was map-wise, but compared to everything that we've had before, this feels like a massive map and it makes you really want to get in and explore. And the village environment itself is full of secrets, and you can see little tidbits of what's been going on since before you got there. You see splintered wood, you see bloodstains, you see food knocked over. You can see that people were obviously fleeing and trying to get out of there as fast as they could. You see corpses, you see severed goat heads, you see the same kind of weird stuff that makes you feel uneasy, kind of like at the beginning of Resident Evil 7. And going through this village, you encounter the actual village inhabitants, which all have personalities of their own. And that's right, in this game, you see more than one human being at a time. In fact, you see groups of people all having dynamic personalities. You have the drunk who's freaking out and yelling at people. You have someone crying because they just lost their husband. It feels like you can see the resonance of what happens when these people get affected by the events in their world. You can see that these people are trying to survive in an environment that is obviously going to shit. And it's not too long before you encounter the game's primary enemies, which are the Lycans. These aren't your shambling zombies. These are fast, violent, visceral enemies that will tear your ass apart. And it's so refreshing to deal with enemies like this because the older games, zombies are terrifying, but you can run past them. These guys, they will attack in packs, they will call for reinforcements, so one of them being a giant dude with a hammer. These guys are no joke, and they will attack you in packs. They'll have Lycans on rooftops as lookouts, and if they see you, they'll howl and they'll call in reinforcements. So there's a lot more strategy to dealing with them. Do you try to sneak by? Do you take out the lookout? Do you conserve your ammo and try to run by them? Do you take one out and run past them all? There's a lot more strategy in the gunplay and the fighting in this game than there ever was before, so it feels a lot more refreshing, and it feels fresh every time you have an encounter. And how you deal with these guys and the weapons you'll use will be very special too, because you'll have staples returning like the handgun, the shotgun, the grenade launcher, but you'll have weapons like the mines, the flashbangs, and the return of the sniper rifle, because these maps are so big and you'll have flying enemies, you'll have enemies off in the distance, and it's great to be able to see the return of the sniper rifle and have gameplay variety like that. But what's a weapon without being able to upgrade it? And that's why we visit the Duke. The Duke is Village's resident merchant. He's kind of like the replacement for Resident Evil 4's merchant, but he seems a lot more helpful. He can obviously upgrade your guns and sell you ammo and healing stuff and new weapons, but you can also bring him food and he can cook you stuff that will actually boost your stats permanently, like bigger health, more endurance, the capability of taking more damage without needing to heal. So there's a lot more to him than just selling you stuff. And obviously he's got his own personality. He can give you cryptic advice and he becomes a part of the story as well. He's actually a really endearing guy and I like him a whole lot. And the Duke is not the only fantastic personality in this game. Obviously, the trailers show Lady Dimitrescu as the main bad guy, but one thing that the trailers got wrong, and I think it was clever marketing, but this isn't really a spoiler because you're going to find out anyway, there are a whole bunch of bad guys you have to deal with, including the big bad Mother Miranda, and they're all distinct, and there's a hierarchical structure to all of them. There are 4 big bads in total, each one controls a region of the village. You have to take them out and then hopefully get to Mother Miranda, and each one is so dynamic and different, as represented by not only their personality, but the areas that you'll go to. Some of them will be vast castles, some of them will be murky swamps. It keeps everything fresh and it makes you look forward to the next boss encounter. And not only the next boss encounter, but Village also brings back mini bosses, smaller encounters that feel not as challenging as facing off with the big bads, but still very fun and very challenging. It's a great time. I know one of my biggest concerns with playing Village is one of the same concerns that a lot of people had, hearing that this was going to be a much more action-oriented game. they thought, oh god, is this going to end up like Resident Evil 5 or 6 where it's not going to have the same feelings of survival horror, it's not going to have the same tension. And that's not true. This game maintains a lot of that tension. In fact, there's a section in the game where, if you've played this, you know what I'm referencing, that actually will make you feel legitimately uncomfortable, and it kind of harkens back to Alien Isolation. I'll be doing a spoiler talk too, so I'll elaborate on these more down the road. But this game, even though there is more action and there's more ammo and guns, you don't ever feel like you're overpowered. You don't ever feel like you can just deal with the situation. Like in Resident Evil 4, you headshot a guy and you kick him and then you just knife him. You can't really pull that stuff here. And there's a lot more combat strategy. There's a lot more, do I run? Do I stand and fight? Do I switch weapons? What do I do? So the combat itself feels a lot more rewarding. I will say though, it does still suck, and I know why they did it. It does still suck you can't aim down sights, and it still sucks that you can't sprint. In a game where you are fighting for your life, it would still be nice to see someone be able to run for their life. He does it in cutscenes. I don't know why I know why he can't do it in gameplay. They don't want this game to feel like Call of Duty, but at the same time, I feel like if you're fighting situations like this, you should be like sprinting or running for your life, or like making mad dashes or something. One of my other cons about this game that I want to bring up is the inventory system. They were really touting that it was going to be like Resident Evil 4. You're going to have to manage your inventory space and move things around. I can say it might just be my luck, but when I played through it on standard just to enjoy the story. I had to move stuff one time, and that was to make room for the sniper rifle. And then every time after that, maybe when I bought a new gun or sold one to buy a new one, yeah, I would have to move stuff around, or I would have to drag and drop it into my cache. Maybe it's because I was buying the new cache as soon as I could every time, but I never really had to deal with that inventory system where I'm rotating stuff and basically playing Resident Evil Tetris. So that might have just been my luck, but I feel like that was kind of overblown. But one of the things that I do really like that has returned is the crafting system. It feels like it's the best of both worlds. It feels like it's the best of Resident Evil 7's crafting system mixed with 2 remakes crafting system. I've never been a big fan of crafting in games. It's just not really my cup of tea, but I like it to where it feels simple enough to where you can pick up on it, but deep enough to where you feel like you're managing your resources so you don't feel like a total idiot. So what can I say about Village that hasn't been said already? Not a whole lot. The game's absolutely fantastic. I love the locales. I love the characters. I love the personality. I love that there's more than just you. You're not necessarily in this story alone, but there are moments where you are by yourself. There's intrigue. There's secrets. There's always new files to read or new papers that you find with more information. And what I like is it does have some callbacks to the events of Resident Evil, but it doesn't rely on them. One of the big things I hate about sequels to games is it always has to rely on the games that have come before. And I know Metal Gear Solid is kind of guilty of it. There's always references to Shadow Moses. And in Resident Evil, that's kind of always been the same thing. There's always references to Raccoon City. There's always references to Spencer Mansion. While these are huge events in the series, at some point you have to say, can a game stand on its own without relying on those references? And Village just does that brilliantly. It does reference 1 or 2 things, but it adds to the lore and it brings everything kind of more full circle in that regard, rather than just relying on past established events. It kind of builds on the past while creating a future for the series. And I think it was so brilliantly done that it has to be commended for it. Resident Evil Village is not only a good Resident Evil game, it is the most important Resident Evil game to come out in years. It continues the story, it improves on the gameplay mechanics of 7 and the remakes. It tells an original story, it has a great cast of characters, both protagonists and antagonists. It has twists in the story that you can't predict. It has an ending that leaves you wanting more. And of course, it's able to maintain the balance between survival horror and action game without completely ruining the flavor and feeling of both genres. Village is not a perfect experience, but it's pretty damn close, and for that, my rating for Resident Evil Village is a solid 4 stars. It is one of the best games I've played in a long time, and it's pretty much one of my top Resident Evil games already. I highly recommend it. Definitely pick it up, and I would definitely say if you haven't played a Resident Evil game ever, you can pick up Village and you won't really miss out on anything. It is very new person friendly. It even has a cutscene that recaps the events of Resident Evil 7. I would recommend playing Resident Evil 7 before you play Village. It doesn't really take anything away from the lore if you don't play 7, but 7's just a fantastic game on its own, and I think you'll get more out of Village if you play 7. But with that, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, Have a great night. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.